Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to Jesters Hideout. This is Akira.
And this is VOLT.
Alright, thank you so much for being here again, VOLT.
Yep, I'm back here again.
And as previously announced, we'll be going over 3 topics again. We'll start with Rent a Girlfriend, then move on to bad experiences with video games, and finally on to the subject of perfect relationships. Is that correct, VOLT?
That is correct.
Okay then, let us get underway with our first topic then. Rent a Girlfriend. So for those viewers who do not know this show, it is an anime that came out this year, right? Fairly certain.
Yep, that's correct.
It was recent in my memory. So the premise basically goes along the lines of this guy, he's a college student, gets dumped by his ex-girlfriend, and then he finds out about a service that lets you rent a girlfriend. So you literally pay someone money and they'll be like your girlfriend for like an hour, a day, depending on how much you book. And that's basically where the story kicks off. I didn't miss anything important, did I?
No, not that I could think of.
Okay. So in the interest of the viewers, though, let's set up some ground rules for what we are and not allowed to talk about. So, specifically chronologically, the only thing that we are not allowed to talk about is anything past the first season of the show. So that means we can talk about anything that happens, at least during the time period of the first season of the show, I think is fair game for us to talk about, even if it's from like a spin-off manga or something that's not seen in a TV show kind of thing. Okay, so let's start off with just an introduction of the characters themselves. So we have main girl Chizuru, who is the first girlfriend that is rented, and then we have Mami, who is the ex-girlfriend of the main character. So main character's name is Kazuya. Then we have Ruka and Sumi, right? Those are the girls?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to show any pictures here, just out of consideration. But at the same time, it is important for us to discuss them bit by bit, right? So,
Yep.
The first 2 characters we are introduced to are Mami and Chizuru, right? So, what is your opinion so far on these characters? Do they feel real to you? Do they feel, I don't know, bland? Anything like that?
Well, I could definitely say that the main character, the female main character that is Chizuru, definitely feels like a real individual that you would probably see in person. The way how she approaches the main character, how she talks to him, and how she reacts to certain situations is very human. It's not like your typical stereotypical characters like tsunderes, yanderes, kunderes, where they have like a certain trait where they have to follow that certain character path, so to say. Well, Chizuru, she doesn't follow any of that character trait at all. Like, she just acts as if how anyone else would react, right? Which I find to be very intriguing. Like, not many characters do that, except to most romance characters, I feel, where they feel very human. But
Well, yeah, you're right. A big thing about her appeal as a character was just that she seemed really realistic somehow. For me,
yeah, exactly.
For me, the big thing that I noticed is that she had like a completely different personality from when she's like in the so-called girlfriend mode to when she's like just herself, right? Like, she gets annoyed easily. She like has this I can't deal with your nonsense kind of attitude towards the main character.
Yeah, like, Chizuru isn't following any sort of character archetype. Like, for example, if you have watched Toradora, right? Like, the main female character, she follows this archetype of a tsundere. So whenever she gets pissed off or whatever, anything ticks her off in some way, her main action to that, or reaction to that sort of situation, is to just beat you up, beat up the main character, pretty much.
You know, that takes me back to like all this talk about like Shinzui and whatever other characters. I remember, I don't know if people have watched Konosuba here, but there was a line where the main character of that said, if you're going to act like one of those characters, suppose like this girl is coming on to me and you get jealous and angry and you try hitting me, I'd fight back without any hesitation, kind of thing.
Oh man, Kazuma is a real character, that's for sure. But we're getting off topic here.
We are, and the reason I mentioned that is because when you stop following tropes to like an absolute T, that's when you get a character that's, well, one, more believable, but two, also more interesting to watch, right?
Definitely. Yeah, Kazuma, he's a one-of-a-kind character that you don't see very often in most anime, I feel. Most anime, they will always follow some sort of archetype, like, a certain index, or a certain magical index, or like a certain scientific railgun, right? Like those two anime. You have the main character, aka Tolma, from Index. He will have this typical dense main character who has a harem. That is Mr. Nice Guy, right?
I was gonna say, like, Kazuya, like the main character of Rent a Girlfriend, sort of falls into that category too, where like he's sort of clueless, bit of a mega simp, for lack of a better word.
In a sense, but he doesn't have a harem that I know of.
Oh, right? No, that he doesn't. So he doesn't fall into the harem protagonist EX category, but...
Yeah, and he's also not very brave either. Well, when it comes to conflict, but he's willing to, like, save a life, I guess, like this one episode where Chizuru almost drowned, I guess, like during their cruise date.
I remember when you and I watched that episode, I said that it was really dumb of him to do that because
it is dumb, yeah.
He doesn't know how to swim either, right? So even if he went down there, they were just both gonna drown, or at least that's what I thought.
Realistically, if that were to happen, one of the cruise ship, like the crewmates would have like jumped in there and saved them. There would have been no way that those two had just. What is it, like their bodies just like somewhere in the beach on the shore?
Yeah, they got washed ashore after that. It's like,
yeah,
oh
exactly.
Man, convenient, right? And the thing is like I guess like Kazuya is meant to be relatable, but at the same time, I like, at least based on what I've seen from people who watch animes, that he is certainly not a very well liked or popular character by any stretch of the imagination.
He's not, because everything he does is very cringy.
Like stalking Chizuru on her like appointment with someone. I remember that happening.
Yeah, and then also admitting every single action and things that he have done during his stalking mode.
All I can say is that I feel like there was a point in time where like I would have been like that dumb and that earnest, but like I gotta say, like, yeah, it does not make you popular with the ladies.
Oh, definitely not. I feel like in real life, any sort of girl that she knows of is being stalked and also admitting all of their weird, creepy actions would probably be a big turn off. Yet for some reason, Chizuru was like A-okay just having him around.
That's true. Well, I mean, like, I think back to Kazuya's actions and as to why his ex-girlfriend dumped him. It's like, on one hand, his ex-girlfriend is pretty two-faced, but at the same time, it's like, when you look at what he does, it's... he's kind of annoying, don't you think? As a main character.
But if that was the case, it would make sense that she dumped him, but then why is she also jealous of wanting him back?
I mean... Okay, so if I'm to break off specifically the focus of the anime for itself is just to talk about, like, what makes people desirable, I feel like a guy who has girls chasing after him is just more desirable, you know, like a hotter commodity. So maybe that was the case, like once she was, like, the ex-girlfriend Mami was under the impression that her ex-boyfriend was suddenly getting popular with, like, you know, really hot-looking girls, like, you know, and she didn't suspect that she was a rental at the time, right? So maybe that's like what triggered the whole like jealousy thing.
Yeah, but near the end of season 1, she finally realized that Chizuru is a girlfriend that you can rent off from a phone app, right? And after that, how do you feel like in her mentality in regards to the main character?
Well, She did say something along the lines of, at least when he was talking to her, because at that point Kazuya had been like using Chizuru as a rental girlfriend for like almost a year, right, or something. I forget the exact time frame, but it had been for a very long time, like to the point where everyone was convinced that Chizuru was Kazuya's real girlfriend. She said that it's like, you know, like you should stop with this fake girlfriend thing because it's not healthy for him. And the thing is that like when she says that, it's like she's objectively saying the truth. And then I remember when Chizuru confronted her, that she got really upset and said, you know, like, you know, whatever happens between me and Kazuya-kun is between me and Kazuya-kun, right? Just really like upset, like matter of fact kind of thing.
Okay.
So, what I suspect is that like at least for a lot of, I don't know if this is all ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriend kind of situations, but I suspect that in certain situations, ex-girlfriends still might care about ex-boyfriend in their own sort of, I guess, twisted way, if I could put it that way. Like, obviously, her actions throughout the first few episodes was like, it showed how two-faced she was and how manipulative she was, right?
Yeah.
But at the end, like, when she starts spitting out facts, like, you know, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder why she broke up with him in the first place. Like, was it really for, you know, just annoying characteristics that we know Kazuya has, or was there a bigger, deeper reason behind it, right?
Well, I guess that we'll never know unless we read the manga, right?
Well, I mean, I know that technically we said only within the first season show, but I should mention that Mami rarely makes any appearances in the manga after that point in the story. So, speaking strictly from a character development point, I think she's given very little character development.
Does that mean her relevance in the story isn't impactful at all?
If you consider the fact that Rental Girlfriend is, at least in terms of weekly serialization, I think you only get a total of approximately, 48 chapters a year, right? I'm fairly certain that she was absent for, like, more than 80 chapters.
That's terrible.
So I think the most character development that Mami has had was actually in the spin-off manga about one of the other girls, Sumi, where like they meet each other in like a restaurant, and it's like it's really obvious how like Mami just manipulated a bunch of dudes into like doing stuff for her and paying for her food.
Right.
So it's like, you know, at the core of it, she's not a good person, but at the same time, it makes me wonder like what her obsession, her fixation with the main character really is like.
A truly mysterious character.
Yes. And you know what? If she's not going to be used in the story extensively, then I feel like her relevance is quite low. Unlike Ruka, for example, the third girl that Kazuya meets.
Yeah, so how do you feel about that certain character in the story?
Let's say my first impression of Ruka was not exactly the most positive. Like, she really annoyed me, you know?
She annoyed you? How
come? Her attitude, man. Like, the way she bumped into Kazuya and then just, like, you know, like, became all, like, you know, I guess... What is the phrase? What is the phrase I'm looking for? Like, she just seems, like, really, like, condescending, you know?
Condescending?
Yeah.
Can you blame her, though? For being condescending? I mean, like... throughout the whole series, or not the whole series, but like when she was first introduced, you and when they get to her backstory, how nothing is getting her excited. Like she's just trying to get something that could like get her heart bumping, you know?
Right, and I get that, but like the thing is that having never known her backstory, I didn't feel that way, right? It's like my attitude about her changed once I realized like oh she's like super sincere, and like once she like fell in love with like Kazuya, she like really tried hard for him. Like that changed my opinion quite a bit. Like it went from like I really don't like this girl to, oh man, I would date a girl like this in real life. It was a complete 180 switch for me. The only characters that I've known that have switched that around so fast was like Ilya from like Fate's Day Night, maybe. I've never actually told you about that, have I?
No, you have not.
So, I mean,
I never knew you had that sort of opinion in Ilya.
Well, just to quickly deviate from our current topic for a second, when I played Fate's Day Night, I only accessed the Fate route originally, right? The number of times Ilya was either responsible for killing you or otherwise mutilating Shiro was like, I freaking hate this girl with all my heart. Why is she so mean? And then, like, you know, when you get to the Heaven's Feel route and she's like, you know, like this really sweet girl to you, and like she consoles you when you're down and everything. Like, I'm like, wow, are these the same characters?
What happened? Who is this person?
Right? And it's like, oh man, and like I felt the same about Rem too, like in ReZero.
Oh, yeah?
Just because like when they were initially introduced, like they were so cruel to the main character, and then later on they became like devoted and
yeah, they were just skeptical of the main character, right? Because he has the witch's scent on him. Well, only Rem can smell the scent, but like
true, but
either or, the scent is no good. It's no good news.
To bring it back to Ruka though, like that's the reason why I initially didn't like her. Like all the main girls in like Rent a Girlfriend look really cute. And I'm pretty sure, like, anyone would love to have someone like that as their partner in real life, but still, personality traits do matter at some point, and I don't know.
How do you feel about Kazuya's personality? Do you think that he is worth? Do you think Ruka is meant to be with him?
Well, okay, here's the thing. Kazuya falls into, like, this archetype of, like, he's a really earnest, loyal, hardworking guy, but he's also dumb as a rock, right? Kind of reminds me of myself, really.
Oh, really? How come?
I look back on like my capacity to make decisions. Like my problem with life has never been staying loyal. It's never been with being honest. It has always been with not seeming not looking like I have low intelligence. Basically, like one complaint that I always got from people was that I didn't seem to have any common sense. So, in the sense that Kazuya is like relatable, like I can give him that, sure. But in the sense that, like, would a girl want to date a person like that? I mean, my personal experience tells me no. So, would I say that it's realistic that Ruka really wants to be with him? I was like, I don't know. Clearly, he has not seen the worst of him yet. So,
yeah.
Right, like, to be completely honest with you, when I look at Kazuya, I see myself. Like, in my younger years. Like, I'm a bit wiser and a bit less dumb compared to before, but, like, you know, when I look at him, I see myself when I was younger. So it's like...
But is it also correct for him to treat Ruka as the side girl? Even though they are somewhat officially boyfriend-girlfriend?
Okay, so honestly, no. Is like, if I were put into that exact situation, like, I would just give up on Chizuru and just, like, commit myself to Ruka, because I think it'd be unfair to not repay her sincerity with sincerity of my own.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but, like, just, when someone is that earnest towards me, like, how can I just not give them a chance, right?
Even though you have no feelings toward that individual?
Well, I mean, my ex-girlfriend told me, this was a long time ago though, she told me that when we first started dating, she had absolutely no feelings for me at all. And it was only after we'd spent a long time together that, you know, that started to change. So it's not an easy thing to do. You have to give it a chance first before you know whether it's right or wrong, right? And I think
then how do you... Sorry, okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just think Kazuya has not been fair in that regard. Like, he hasn't given Ruka a chance, but technically that is the author's decision and not Kazuya's decision, so to speak.
The author's decision is Kazuya's decision, my man.
Technically, yeah. But I mean, like, that's an overarching complaint with the whole, like, series as a whole, isn't it? The fact that it seems like nothing gets done, nothing really happens. Anyways,
and this brings me back to like Nisakoi, right? Like,
what were you about to ask me though?
Everybody is just like being around the bush and just not getting anything done or any sort of progress at all, like in regards to the relationship.
Yeah. What were you gonna ask me? Before you got cut off.
I don't remember. I think I already said what I wanted to say.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's fine then. But at the end of the day, it's like I would be jealous to be in Kazuya's situation where he has choices like that. I don't think many people gets to have that luxury of a problem, you know? I remember Sunohara from Clan Ed literally like giving the main character a lot of hard times because he couldn't choose which twin he wanted to date. And he's like, your problems are a luxury, you know that? Yeah.
Yes, Clan Ed. I love that anime.
Perhaps that shall be a topic for us to discuss as well. I think it's Honestly, 20 minutes is hardly enough to talk about everything we want to talk about a show about, hey?
Definitely.
Still, I mean, if the audience ever wants to hear more in that regard, we can always extend in that direction. So, because we only have 20 seconds left in the segment, any closing remarks you want to make?
No, I do not.
Okay, and all I can say is that I look forward to Season 2, because despite what some people might say, I actually really enjoyed this show, so we'll see where it goes next. Alright then, now let us look at our second topic for today, which was unpleasant video game experiences. Oh, I didn't expect this to happen.
What'd you do?
Don't worry about it. Let me just censor this to the screen. Because I changed the length of the topic, it ultimately ended up bumping the text off the screen. I guess I'll keep that in mind for next time. But anyways, unpleasant video game experiences. I have many ones that I can think of off the top of my head, but I'll let you go first.
Haha, yes. So, one of the games that I did not have a good time with was Final Fantasy 15.
People like me, we call that Final Fantasy Versus 13.
Yep. See, the reason why I did not enjoy Final Fantasy 15 as much as I should was because of the many trailers that was on YouTube. I was portraying what the game should have been versus what it actually is. So on the trailer, it seemed like there's going to be some serious stories that was about to be told. There's this war. You're gonna explore all over the world of EOS. What is it like? There should be more conflict. Just a lot of lore that could have been explored in the game, but instead you got the bare minimum. Unfortunately, I got the game on day one, so when you play the day one version of the game without the DLCs and everything, there's just a lot of missing portion of the story where you actually have to buy the DLCs in order to understand where the characters went or what they went through and all that shenanigans. The world may be massive, but the open field is too bland. There's nothing. There's no life. There's a lot of grass, but that's it. You want to explore. Like when I played the game, I was hoping the exploration for the open world will be similar to Genshin Impact, right? Where, like, every places you go, you will see enemies, you will see chests, you can climb. Everywhere you look, it looks fascinating, it looks beautiful. But when you travel around on EOS in Final Fantasy 15, all you see is nothing but grass and rocks, and and you can't even go on a high viewpoint to like look over the horizon. You can't even do that.
So it wasn't actually like a true open world game experience?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Okay.
I mean, sure, you can, like, near the end game, yes, you could, like, turn your car into a flying vehicle and fly around the place, but, like, it's not the same, like, when you're actually trying to explore and look for new things, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I was really hoping, like, the game would have a lot of hidden things, like secret boss, secret weapons, but there's none of that.
Basically, it was too on rails, right? For like an open world kind of experience. I heard that actually, like, Final Fantasy 15 had a reputation for being like a road trip simulator.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like when you played Final Fantasy 15 for the first time, like you don't know what to expect. So when you like went on the road trip, it was pretty nice. Like looking around. The characters, like, having their hair blown from the wind, looks very realistic. Having some people around, a little bit of monsters on the open field, just to make the scene look kind of realistic. But once you explore the world enough, you'll realize there's nothing more to they have nothing more to offer.
I think that was really the same problem that I had with Destiny 2, is that like the world is beautiful, expansive, and vast, but the depth of what you could explore, what you could see, was not very good. Like, I remember Angry Joe he's a YouTuber, so Angry Joe said something along the lines of Destiny was as wide as an ocean, but as shallow as a puddle. So, I can understand your disappointment.
Well, my main disappointment was actually the story part of the story portion of the game.
Really?
Like, yeah, because when you first started the game, everything seemed like what you should expect. But right to the point where Noctis gets the newspaper where it says that his kingdom has fallen from Niflheim, like in your mind, you thought you're going to play some Tales of Symphonia sort of game. Have you ever played that game before?
Afraid not. No, JRPGs are definitely not my specialty.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, I'll try to explain what I mean then. So, like, once you get this like news that Niflheim destroyed your kingdom, I was hoping that we would be the cause to exact revenge on Niflheim.
Oh, like Code Geass style?
Yeah, exactly. Except, as you progress through the story, Niflheim eventually fallens from another party, not even your own. So
baited.
Yeah, it's like you got all this hype for nothing. It's like what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And then like there's a lot of things that was happening off screen. So like the battle in Niflheim, or no, not Niflheim, but like Noctis's kingdom.
Yeah.
I think it's called Insomnia or something like that. All that occurred like the battle between Niflheim and Insomnia occurred in a movie, and in my opinion, I feel like we should have actually played and experienced the battle instead of watching it in a movie.
That's
right. Like,
yeah.
All of this cinematic could have happened in game, except it didn't. It's like, why was that a thing? And then I feel like all the exciting things that were happening did not happen to the main character. The main character just got the side story sort of experience rather than the main event.
Okay.
Like the battle in Niflheim versus Insomnia, and then the DLC for Final Fantasy 15 Comrades. You can actually fight one of the gods that is said to be like the actual main bad guy of the story, but the main character himself didn't actually beat him. So it's very strange, right?
Yeah, that is strange, because normally main characters are meant to take part in all like major battles,
right? Yeah, but instead the Comrade, the Final Fantasy 15 Comrade DLC, you just play as a side character, and the side character is the one who fought the main bad guy instead.
That's strange then, because
well, Noctis himself, the main character, he just fought who seems to be the main villain, but he's actually the victim of the main villain. So you didn't do anything. Instead, you're just beating around the bush. So once I realized, once I realized all that, I was very disappointed. I was like, my God. all of my actions, all this event that I just went through with Noctis, like, it was not well rewarded.
It'd be the same as like if Eren Yeager didn't actually participate in all the major battles in Attack on Titan.
Yeah. Instead, he's just the side story. He's just the side character doing side event things, and just watches the main event unfolds in front of him.
Yeah, I guess that means that longer development times doesn't necessarily lead to a better game then, because I remember that.
I mean, like look at Anthem, right? You remember Anthem? That game? Like,
dude, I remember being hyped for that.
Yeah.
I saw the announcement here, like, oh man, this is like mech suits exploring the world. This is what Destiny should have been, and then, well, it actually turns out it's exactly what Destiny should have been, because it's almost exactly like Destiny.
Oh no.
Well, I mean, okay, if we were to deviate slightly from like just Final Fantasy 15 as a whole, though, I think that's a problem, at least in the game development industry, is that when you make a game, you expect this to be received well, right?
Yeah.
Like, kind of like No Man's Sky as well. You make the game expecting it that will do well, like with the expectation that you will do well. But then, because you make the gameplay too shallow or too repetitive or too something, and you cannot get customers to be retained, then like the game will just slowly die and fall apart.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we talk about Anthem, we talk about Destiny, but they were like, no, like games still do that. Like I heard that recently, there was a lot of discussion about this game, by the way. Have you heard of Marvel's Avengers?
Oh yes, I have.
So
that was a game that was supposed to be similar to its predecessor, where you have a four-player co-op beat 'em up game.
Yeah.
With Marvel characters.
Yeah, that's what I heard, and I was super excited to see like the gameplay trailers and everything. But then, apparently, when the game came out, it was just like you know how like in Destiny, all you do is like repeat missions over and over again and loot stuff.
Oh, is that what was happening with Marvel?
Yeah, apparently it was the exact same thing. It was like you just go, you pick superheroes, you do missions over and over again, and then you get like loot box styled rewards like skins and voice lines and poses and stuff or something like that.
No, that's
like,
never fun.
Yeah, like and the story was pretty absent. It's strange because like you think that Marvel, they had Avengers Endgame, which was like one of the most successful movies and one of the most well received movies of all time, and then you turn that around, you add like poor storytelling, bad game mechanics, and then the video game becomes one of the worst, right?
It's very strange because like although that game failed, the PS4 Marvel Spider-Man did really well. That was a really good game. Like, have you ever played that game before?
I actually have not had the privilege of playing that yet.
Okay, but if you were to play the Marvel Spider-Man PS4, you will know like the story. The story's very well. Like each and every time you play a mission or do side things or even like just playing the main mission, like you will be what is it like? Very, very involved with the story.
Invested, I suppose.
Yeah, invested. That's the word I'm looking for. Like, oh, sorry. Like,
but the thing is that the problem with games like Anthem, because Anthem and Marvel's Avengers had very similar problems and like died for basically the exact same reasons, right? Is that the game was made specifically to get money, not because they were made to be good games. Like, at least to my understanding, to be successful in the video game industry, you ideally want to make a good product, because a good product gets good publicity and it sells itself, right? You don't have to be overbearing with your PR campaign or anything like that. Like, the game is good, people pick it up, they try it for themselves, it's good, right? But when you don't do that, then that's when you start getting into, well, you've just blew a budget of $60 million or so trying to make this game, but it's lost 98% of its player base in like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't speak from experience, only from hypothesis though. I actually have no experience in game development, but just business sense would dictate that good products sell themselves. And
I mean, what determines a good product is that you need to understand your target audience's mindset, right? Of what they're looking for, their expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you play Final Fantasy 15, right? You're expecting a good story or some sort of story, like any sort of story, right? Because like when you look at its predecessors, Final Fantasy 1 all the way to 14, it's always about the story. Like RPG, the battle, that's only the side thing. It's not the main event. It's the story that you're looking for.
Yeah, I remember Final Fantasy 13 was that way for me.
Yeah. So like when people purchased Marvel Spider-Man, they were hoping like a good storytelling and how they would tell Peter Parker's event that is going to be unfold in the game. They weren't looking forward to like the battles. I mean, yes, like the battle is important. Otherwise, the game was sucked. But
you gotta figure out like where you want to take that product. Like how the Arkham games, like Batman Arkham games, like they just made you feel like Batman using his strategies, his gadgets, and everything. Like it was an immersive experience.
Yeah.
I think Spider-Man was doing the same then.
Yes, definitely. Oh yeah. And then like, if you were to purchase a fighting game, you were expecting to play a game fighting other players or like fighting CPUs and stuff, right? You weren't gonna buy it just for the story, or maybe some are in exceptions like Blaze Blue. Blaze Blue has like this visual novel type of stories, but most of the time most people buys them for the battle. Right? Like you just need to know what your target audiences are looking for.
And I think
you gotta meet their expectations somehow.
Part of the problem comes from trend chasing. Like I remember when you've ever heard of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds or Fortnite?
Yeah, Fortnite, obviously.
So I remember when those two games got really freaking popular, everyone tried to imitate the Battle Royale game mode. Like every game, like even games that had no prior experience of Battle Royale tried to implement a Battle Royale game mode.
Yes.
And I just thought like, you know, like because that was a bad time for Call of Duty, and Call of Duty was one of my favorite game franchises. It's like Call of Duty used to be a trendsetter, and now they're a trend chaser. They're trying to chase the gravy train and get a taste of it. You know?
I guess so. Like I think it's because of Modern Warfare that the game mode deathmatch is a thing, right? I think. I don't know. Or it got like popularized.
Well, Team Deathmatch was always a game mode. It was just that like I think Modern Warfare, like the original Modern Warfare, was like the first big one because that was when online gaming had really taken off, right? As well.
Yeah.
It was easier to do that as well. And then we look at what's another really good example? Like all these looter shooters, like Destiny was the progenitor, right? The original looter shooter was Destiny kind of thing, right? The big one at least, because I know Borderlands preceded it, but Destiny was the first one that was sort of like, you know, commercially successful, and then companies kept trying to imitate its formula, thinking that, you know, that's what consumers want, when, you know, in reality, single-player story-focused games are still really popular, right? Like, you look at what EA does with Star Wars and the Star Wars license, and how they made, like, you know, like basically a Star Wars themed casino in the form of Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
No one bought that game, and they were really upset about it, and like up until the point where EA fixed the game, or like I guess DICE did, because EA is just a publisher, but like DICE had to get rid of all the microtransaction stuff, completely overhaul the gameplay system, and make everything good. And then, you know, people started liking the game, buying into it, but like by that point the damage had been done, right?
Oh, yeah,
and then EA comes out with Star Wars Fallen Order, which again, single player story driven game. What did it do? It sold really well.
Yeah, it sold well because, you know, it met all the expectations that their target audience was looking for, right?
And then if we have to go by the converse, I guess we'll spend the last like 2 minutes talking about Cyberpunk 2077, because it's kind of a big deal right now.
Oh yeah, the game has way too many bugs.
I feel really bad for the devs in this situation, because it feels like if they had more time to work on the game in like Iron the Kinks, would have been fine. But then you have, you know, quote unquote fans issuing death threats to the developers for the delays and stuff. And apparently, I was reading up on the news about this. The leadership of CD Projekt Red, the guys behind Cyberpunk, they lied about the state of the game. They said it was playable back in January, but like it was nowhere close to being playable.
Ooh.
And supposedly
lying. I was gonna say, like, lying is never good. I mean, look at the game director for that created No Man's Sky, right?
Oh yeah, they completely changed the way they did things.
They memed him calling him No Man's Lie because of how many like things that he said that would be in the game, and then when you bought it, there was none of the things that he mentioned that would be in the final product, right?
Yeah, that's why he changed his approach. Whereas like once features were ready, he would announce them, and not beforehand. And like that's why his company's game turned around and, you know, became good. Like apparently it's actually really good now. But okay, but the thing is that CD Projekt Red was like, they were like the poster child of, you know, consumer friendly game developer and publisher, right? But the thing is that I also heard that this time around they embargoed reviews. Like they would not let people use their own footage for reviews. and you can tell how misleading that would be, right? Because the people who have the most problems with the game are the ones playing it on the PS4 and the Xbox One, and no footage of Xbox One and PS4 gameplays were showed. So then it misled consumers, I feel.
Because they thought that this is the game that they were expecting once they boot up the PS4 or the Xbox, right?
Yeah. Do you mind if we go like 5 minutes into overtime? Because I want to go on this topic a bit more, and then we'll just...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly, as you said. It's almost like deception, in a way. Commercial deception.
Mm-hmm.
They basically relied on the fact that people expected the game to work like they were demonstrating, but then when they booted it up... I sent you that video, didn't I? Where like... someone booted up the game on PS4, and then like the moment they exited this train, and everything just looks like it was from a Nintendo 64, and then it just crashed.
Yeah, everything was losing texture, everything was breaking down as if you're in the Matrix, and then it just crashed. That was terrible. Like, It got so terrible to the point that Sony was willing to refund the game to everyone that purchased Cyberpunk.
Did they?
2077. Yeah.
I know Sony has a ridiculously stringent policy on like any sort of game you buy from the online store. So like basically, if you download the game, you can no longer refund it. So I guess, wow.
Yeah, they were willing to refund it, so it was crazy.
So they stopped being stingy. I guess. I guess they wanted to avoid.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say like they probably wanted to avoid association with the problem.
Mm-hmm. When the game has like a 99% of crashing, then it's basically a scam if you bought that game, because like you just wasted a full price $80-$60 of a game that doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, it is a scam in a way. It's like a bait and switch, even, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine that a lot of consumers are really upset. And here's the thing, though, is that you know how you had fans issuing death threats saying that you can't criticize Cyberpunk 2077 and stuff like that, right? But then, like, once the game comes out and, like, the bugs show up, and, like, the bug directly affects the gamers, right? Like, that's when they actually complain. Like, not when developers are being overworked, being forced to do, 6-hour work weeks and 12-hour work days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of it just seems like really hypocritical to me, Like, I want my games to be developed humanely because they're being made by people just like me, right? So, like, not only does corporate leadership have to take responsibility for being deceptive to the consumers, they also have to take responsibility for the bad practices that they've used on their own workers. Because at the end of the day, like, I don't know, like, I think there was someone during one of the video conferences at CD Projekt Red who said, don't you think it's kind of hypocritical for us to make a game about, corporate corruption and, mishandling and all that stuff when that's happening in our own company?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I heard.
Well, the problem with people like them is that they're just impatient and they only think about themselves rather than the ones actually developing the game, right? Because like in their current state, all they're doing is like sitting on their ass doing nothing or doing something with their life.
Well,
not helping out with the game at all, so they have no way of understanding the game developers' stress.
Yeah, I think there's always, like, in any business situation, there is usually a disconnect between leadership and frontline workers, and usually, at least based on the books that I've read, is that it's up to leadership to make sure that they proactively stay in touch with people on the front lines, that they take ownership of the problems rather than delegating problems away. So, like I said, it's hard to say, and I would say that it's just really sad to see the state of the game as it is right now, because, there was a point in time where I was actually curious enough that I said, maybe I want to try it out, because I don't usually play RPG games, right? But when I see it like this, it's like, oh man, I guess I'm just gonna have to wait a few years for this game to, like, be functional before I even consider trying that.
Yeah, I mean, it took, I think, like, a couple of years until No Man's Sky was actually a good game now, right?
Yeah, so deliberate effort, of course, can result in comeback stories, but my gripe with it is that it should never have happened in the first place, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I guess that's another reason why you don't overhype games.
You should, like, I feel like you should only overhype games when you actually when you actually know that you can complete this game and meet everyone's expectations rather than like I don't know. I guess in a business standpoint, like they might have to like overhype them just so that people could actually buy them, right?
Perhaps, yes, but there's a limit to how much you can, like, you can make things flowery, yes, but if you lie or exaggerate, that makes things very difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that one of the old memes back in the day was when someone wants to pre-order a game, you gave them a box of No Man's Sky to hold on to.
I never knew about that meme. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll show it to you later, but yeah, I think that's also a good way to wrap up our topic. So, let us now move on to our very last topic, which will be, oh man, my spelling mistakes. The perfect relationship.
Is there such thing as one?
Well, actually, you were the one who sent this to me a while ago, so I'm actually going to pull out this little post from Reddit, if I can find it real fast. It was a whole, like, it was just a statement about perfect relationships, but at the same time, there was a lot of other sub-comments on top of that. So let's start with what the original thread poster said. So this is on r/dating advice. It says LPT, which I don't understand what that means, but it says, you don't need a perfect relationship. All you need is someone who loves your weirdness, wants to spend time with you, and respects you. There's really no such thing as a perfect relationship. Finding someone you're even remotely compatible with is a miracle. Whoever loves you and respects you is that perfection you were looking for. And this has, 13,100 upvotes on Reddit, so it seems like a lot of people agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, specifically from the philosophical perspective of there will never be a perfect relationship, I guess. At the same time, I don't know. It just feels like this is one of those you can state a fact and it is correct, but I don't know how it makes me feel kind of thing.
Okay, how do you feel about in regards to this topic?
Well, I think it's really difficult to find someone who's willing to get along with you in that regard. You know, it's like, what really makes this statement? What really makes it different from a friendship, right? Because your friends are the ones who usually tolerate that. I can tell you from like my personal experience that I am one of the wackiest people you will ever meet in your life. I will have the strangest, most cringy streaks when I do stuff with my friend group, right? But they tolerate that, and you know, we get a kick out of it, we get a laugh out of it, and everyone goes home happy. But seriously, like, when it comes to romantic relationships, I feel like that's sort of on a different level. Like,
why is that? Why is it different?
Well, friends specifically, I'm not sure if everyone would agree with me on this, but friends typically show their best sides to one another at all times, right? Like, you've basically never seen me like be snarky or be on bad behavior, because I tend to not be that kind of person when I'm around my friends, right? But then I often find when I'm around family members or like, you know, like I used to have a girlfriend like way back when, but in those situations I would have much less patience. I would be a lot more selfish and a lot less considerate, right? And I know that, at least based on my observations of my family members, is that they do the same thing. Like, they're super kind to, you know, coworkers, they're considerate to clients, strangers, and all that stuff, right? But when it comes to kids, like, I do something differently from what my mom wants me to do, she's just gonna yell at me, right?
Yeah, because they are less restrained, knowing that that you won't say anything back, or like, or there'll be like less consequences, is what I would say. Right,
and so it's like if we're gonna talk about how there's no perfect relationship, the best thing you can manage is, like, you know, you be best friends with someone. It's like, yeah, and how long before, you know, that starts not working? I always feel like there will be a point in time, like, there's no relationship that will be, you know, completely perfect, smooth sailing. And even with what this statement is saying, that you just need to find someone who will accept your weirdness, like, there will come a point where they just can't tolerate you anymore. Like, that's what I feel. Like, that is almost the inevitability that you'll reach at some point. Maybe I'm
Well,
just pessimistic, but
that only happens if you're unwilling to change, right? That's the thing. Like, you have to adopt and figure out what your partner likes. So then you could avoid doing all the things that they don't like, thus they will have less reasons to be pissed off at you, right?
well, and then it becomes like this. Oh, you gotta appease that person, they gotta appease you. And it just feels like it's hard to strike a balance. Like, I spent a lot of time being single, to be completely honest, and what I've noticed is that the biggest contrast is that I no longer have to feel like I'm stepping around eggshells with people. Like it's of course it's bad to be inconsiderate. It's never good to be inconsiderate, but it just feels like there's less pressure when you don't have to worry about getting someone upset, getting someone hurt. You know what I mean?
Well, the fact that you have to walk around eggshells in the first place means that you're incompatible with this partner.
In a matter of speaking, I suppose that is true.
Because, like, with my current girlfriend, I don't feel like I need to, like, avoid any sort of eggshells. I feel like I'm just walking around normal grounds. There's no traps, no fragile things that I could break. Like, it's all smooth sail. You just need to find somebody that is 100% a-okay with you, and then you are also a-okay with them back, right?
Well,
you two are compatible in both personality and interest, then everything should be fine.
Well, okay, so then the issue would come back to, so is the true challenge of a relationship finding the right person to begin with, or is it adapting to challenges within the relationship itself, in your opinion?
I would say both.
I definitely struggle with the former compared to the latter. So,
trying to find the individual that is compatible with you.
Yeah, they say that there's a lot of people in the world, right? Yet somehow, like, when that is said, it is like they are available out there, but like conversely, that also puts the onus on you to like find a way to track down these people, right? And when I say track down, I don't mean track down at all. I mean like you are looking to bump into them by chance.
Unfortunately, that is the only way.
So, I mean, and that's the thing, is that like I also feel like that sort of attitude also breeds in like a bit of complacency in the individual, right? When I say complacency, I mean like I usually don't change anything about myself, my attitude or my behavior or anything, unless I feel like there is a need to, right?
Yeah.
So if I externalize all my problems, like I think it's a kind of like this is like a cognitive bias of some sort, right? Where you attribute all the successes in your life to yourself, but you attribute all the shortcomings and problems to something else. I feel like that is a very real trap that you can fall into if all you care about is just finding the perfect person.
Well, that other person doesn't have to be perfect. Like, if that other person is a good enough buddy to the point where you see them as a best friend, then I think like that person is compatible with you if you're interested in like having a relationship with that person.
So I'm guessing that is the limit of acceptability, so to speak.
Yeah. I feel like the reason why there's a lot of people friend zoning another person is either one, there's a lot of weirdness that they cannot accept about this other person, or two, it's because they are scared that after the breakup, the friendship won't be there anymore. So after that, they won't be seeing each other, talking to each other, and whatnot. Or three, that certain individual is not sparking a certain flame in their hearts,
Well, if I have to speak specifically about point 2, I feel like that tends to happen in most cases, Like, I have not spoken directly to my former partner for several years now, and I still find it to be a difficult thing to do. It's like, so when you're that close with a person, like, could you really settle for friendship again after that point, right? So, like, to me,
it's hard.
It's a very realistic fear, right? And I know that there's people who are even scared to ask out someone else because they're afraid that it would damage the friendship too, make things awkward, so to speak, right?
But you also want more, right? You want more than just this restraint relationship that you're currently having.
It becomes an issue of how selfish you're willing to be, because I feel like for a lot of individuals, pursuing a romantic relationship is fundamentally out of self-interest and not generosity. Do correct me if I'm mistaken.
Generosity?
As in, when you ask someone to go out with you, it's because you want them to be your partner, not because you want to give them something back, right? That's what I mean. So, I mean, usually, I've actually had people come to me for advice on that particular point, like, I'm scared to ask out someone because I'm afraid we'll damage our friendship. I've always just said, like, if someone is willing to end a friendship just because you ask them out or something, I feel like that person was never a good friend to you to begin with. But, I mean, admittedly, I have very limited experience with relationships, so perhaps I am not the subject matter expert here, so to speak. I mean, how about you, though?
I don't think there is such thing as an expert or pro way to approach a relationship or how to handle a relationship. It's mostly the individual themselves. Because everybody has their own quirks, right? Like... Not everyone's going to have the same strategy and work with another individual, like, because everyone has their own quirks, has their own, like, sort of personality. This is hard. You have to find the right fitting in a certain situation to, like, get it to work properly,
I mean, that also requires a lot of work. If I remember that the analogy that I had from
Nobody said that a relationship is easy. Of course it has. Of course it's going to require a lot of work.
これが本当めんどくさいですね。Seriously, like that's honestly what it comes down for me, like at a fundamental level, is that like it almost feels as though I'm trying way too hard for that. There was an old analogy that go ahead.
I mean yes, like you will have to try. But if you get rewarded at the end, it should, that's all that matters, right?
Now, I could tell you all about the university degree that I got absolutely no reward for. With the belief.
But we're talking about school, not relationships.
I'm just saying that, like, there is a point to consider, and, like, I understand why a lot of people would be hesitant about relationships, and it's something that, I am to an extent afraid of as well, is that you might invest a lot of time and resources into a relationship only for it to not turn out, and now you have lost that time, you have lost those resources, and none of those are refundable, right?
Yeah.
So that's why there's that obsession with just finding that perfect relationship so that you could never have that concern to begin with, right? Now,
yes.
I mean, I feel like outsiders looking into a relationship, they only see, like, the best of that relationship. They don't see what happens behind the scenes, right? So, God knows, a perfectly healthy-looking couple might be, fighting in the bedroom and stuff like that, and you would probably never know. But because you only see what's good, like, basically, in a way, society has conditioned you to believe that this is how a relationship should be. Don't you think?
Could you elaborate more?
Well,
like, what do you mean?
From the very beginning, I was always convinced, not so much, more like indoctrinated that, guys should behave a certain way in a relationship, girls should behave a certain way in a relationship, investing in that relationship means that you get something back out of it, etc., etc. Like, the whole, as long as you try hard, it'll work out. But I don't think reality works that way, because people are inherently selfish in ways that they can't express to you through words, right? People will make promises to you one way or another, and it's like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll never leave, etc., etc. But then the thing is that when push actually comes to shove, like, it's in people's nature to feel resentment, jealousy, anger, many other things, right? When things actually get tough.
Yeah.
Like, you could swear, like, whatever oaths you want, whatever vows you want, but you look at the rate that divorces happen in the civilized Western world, and like, you have to acknowledge that it doesn't always work out, despite, the promises.
Yeah, like, in my opinion, I feel like promises, or to most people anyway, promises are only words they will keep during the moment, but after like a few years, maybe even a few days, a few months, that thought could potentially change, and then your words can be broken by a certain action or by a certain mindset, right?
I suppose it all comes down to willpower at the end of the day, but I mean, I as an individual, I prefer just to not make promises at all, because I don't like dealing with an unsaid expectation, because that's really what it comes down to. It relationships function off of communication, but one of the biggest traps in that regard is having unsaid expectations, right? Like, suppose your partner expects you to behave one way in a certain situation, but they don't tell you that, and you don't know any better. Like, this is kind of the trap that I got caught in my own relationship, is that one person has an expectation for the other that is unknown to the other party, and when that happens, when the other person fails to meet that expectation, like, the obvious result, like we talked about this with video games too, is that when expectations are not met, the obvious reaction is disappointment, and disappointment will lead to, eventually leads to disrespect, just a lot of bad things at the end of the day, right? And
I feel like, like I was going to say, like, I feel like a relationship is like a string. So imagine like you're holding onto a string and your arms are pulled out wide and make sure it's straight, right? You have to uphold that string and make sure it's straight at all times. If it doesn't go straight, like it just like goes loose a little bit, the relationship is now downfalling. Like, you just did something. It is that sensitive. Like, if you do anything, if you said anything, if something else happened, that string, it would either just snap, it would not be straight, or like something else were to like, make it go bouncy in a way.
Well, basically, what sounds like to me like what you're saying is that relationships tend to be extremely volatile if you're not very careful.
Very, like, extremely fragile in a way.
What did Slade from Teen Titans say all those years ago? He said something along the lines of, trust is easy to break, but it takes time to build. Kind of thing.
The same way as like a building, right? Like, it takes time to create a large, tall building, but it's very easy to destroy and take down.
One earthquake would freaking level the whole building, as you mentioned it. And I guess to that point, like, to go all the way back to the concept of perfect relationship not existing, it's like I really guess you can't front load that work either, because if you just try really, really hard to track down someone who just happens to fit your every single requirement, I think like the foundation of that relationship itself might be a bit shaky. And at the same time, it's like it also depends on how much you're willing to invest in that relationship to begin with. Like, if you charge in with 150% effort, perhaps when things don't pan out the way you expect it to, you'll be the one who is disappointed, right?
Yeah. A relationship is definitely all about mutuality. Like everything has to be equal. One party has to do one thing and the other party has to do another.
I always want to complain about how anime makes relationships look so simple. It is almost unfair, if I may say so myself. But I think I've written a whole essay about that before.
Which anime did you watch that made you think that?
Hey, I mean, you look at any main character with, like, I don't know, like the harem protagonist EX powers, and like they're just attracting girls left and right. And it's like, oh, he's nice to all of them somehow. Like, I literally use Data Live as my go-to example for that. How is this man capable, nice, and considerate towards every single one of these girls? How is that physically possible?
How did he not choose one of them yet? Is the real question.
I mean, obviously, like like that's kind of like besides the point. But the thing is that like when you look at the nature of relationships, the nature of people, their emotions and whatnot, it all comes down to being able to keep a cool head, to step back and say, oh yeah, we're all human, we're all gonna make mistakes, and to not like crucify each other over stuff like that.
Yeah.
Who knows? I will ponder this matter more. Let's leave it at that, shall we? Man. Yeah.
I got much else to say, to be honest.
Well, that's okay, because that actually brings us to the end of our time for today. So,
it is that time already?
It is, believe it or not. So, to all our viewers today, thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll see you on the next episode of Jesters Hideout for more topics like this. If you ever have any suggestions for us that you want us to discuss, feel free to leave it in the comments, and we'll get to it. For now, though, this is Akira.
This is Volt.
We'll see you next time. Thank you guys so much.